Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today, we're jumping straight into something really important, the UN's World Investment Report for 2025. Our plan is to, unpack what's happening with global foreign direct investment, or FDI, especially this huge surge in digital stuff and what that means for economies like India. We want to give you a kind of shortcut to understanding these big economic shifts. Might be some surprises in there. Ready to get into it?
Definitely. This report really is a goldmine, I think. It's more than just data points. It helps you see where the money's actually moving globally. It gives you a real sense of the underlying shifts.
Absolutely. Okay, so let's paint the big picture first. Global FDI. The report says it looked like it hit, $1.4 trillion in 2024?
So that's the headline number, yeah. An 11% jump from the year before.
Which, sounds great. Like things are bouncing back.
It does sound good. But here's where it gets a bit tricky. A crucial detail, really.
Yes.
That $1.4 trillion, well, it actually dropped by 8% if you pull out these European conduit economies, as the report calls them.
So places where money just flows through, basically, not actual on-the-ground investment.
Exactly. It's more financial routing than, say, building a new factory. And that changes the story quite a bit, doesn't it?
Yeah, that does feel like a really important distinction. So globally, maybe a bit more muted than it first appears.
I think that's fair to say. It forces you to look past the headline figure to see the real investment trend.
Right. Okay, so a bit of a mixed picture overall. But one area that seems, undeniably booming is the digital economy.
Oh, definitely.
The report talks about this explosion in greenfield investment there. That's like building new stuff from scratch.
That's it. New facilities, new operations, not just buying existing companies.
And it says that has tripled since 2020. Triple.
Yeah, it's pretty staggering. We're talking about $360 billion, nearly a third of all these kinds of projects.
Wow. So that's things like semiconductors, tech hubs.
Precisely. Semiconductors, big data centers, digital infrastructure, all that jazz. A huge amount of capital flowing into that space.
But here's the kicker. You mentioned a nuance earlier.
There is. And it's a big one for development. The report found that 80% of those digital projects in the Global South, they went to just 10 countries.
Only 10. So much for lifting all boats then.
Exactly. It's highly concentrated. The digital revolution isn't spreading evenly, at least not yet through this kind of investment. It tells you a lot about, growing disparities.
And I bet I can guess who's leading that pack of 10.
You probably can. India is right there at the top, a real digital magnet.
Makes sense. So why India? What's the draw?
Well, it's kind of a perfect storm in a good way. You've got a really strong tech ecosystem already in place, plus supportive government policies, like Make in India. And then there's the obvious stuff. Huge market, lots of skilled people.
And the numbers back that up.
They do. India pulled in 1,080 greenfield projects in 2024. That puts it fourth globally, which is pretty impressive.
Any specific examples jumping out?
Yeah, Maharashtra state alone got $16.6 billion in FDI last year, and the big one people talk about is Foxconn.
The Apple connection.
Right. They put in $1.5 billion. Part of that push to diversify Apple's manufacturing base, move some of it to India.
Okay, that paints a really strong picture.
Yeah.
But there was also a slight dip mentioned in India's overall FDI.
Ah, yes. Good point. It did dip slightly, by 1.9% down to about $27.6 billion.
Which feels a bit weird, right? Given everything we just said about digital investment booming there, how does that fit?
Well, context is key here. Remember the bigger global picture. Things were a bit shaky, geopolitical tensions, economy slowing down a bit, and actually developing countries overall saw their FDI fall by 2%. So India's small dip is, sort of better than the average in that group.
Right, okay. So it held up relatively well despite the global headwind.
Exactly. And it actually climbed the global rankings for FDI inflows up to 15th place. So even with a slight dip, its position strengthened.
Interesting. So less about the absolute number and more about relative performance and strategic direction, like using that digital FDI for manufacturing, like the Foxconn example.
Precisely. It shows a strategy at play, not just random flows.
Okay, so digital is a huge story. What about the more traditional stuff, like cars, electronics, those big global supply chain sectors?
Yeah, they're still seeing growth, too. It's not all digital. The report mentions Hyundai, for instance.
Oh, yeah.
They invested $721 million in a plant in Maharashtra, Talgaon. So, traditional manufacturing is still attracting big money.
Okay, so there's growth there, too. But I sense there's another but coming.
There is, and it's a significant one. A major downside highlighted in the report. Investment linked to the Sustainable Development Goals, the SDGs.
Things like clean energy, water, basic infrastructure.
Exactly. Crucial stuff. FDI in those areas dropped globally by 11%.
11%, that's quite a drop.
It is. And within that, renewable energy deals specifically fell by 16%.
Wow. 16% drop in renewable energy investment. That's concerning, especially with climate change being such a huge issue.
It really is this major tension, you know. You have this surge in digital, but a pullback in these absolutely foundational areas for sustainable long-term development.
So what does that mean for a country like India? They have big climate goals, right?
Huge goals. But if the private foreign investment isn't flowing strongly into green sectors, it puts more pressure on, well, public money and partnerships. They'll need more public-private initiatives to fill that gap.
It really highlights that challenge.
Yeah.
Grab the digital boon, but don't forget the sustainable foundation.
That's the balancing act, yeah.
Now, on the policy front, India seems to be doing some things right. The report liked digital government tools, didn't it? Things that make investment easier.
It did. And India's initiatives like the National Single Window System, the John Vishwas Act, simplifying rules, they fit right into that positive picture. Streamlining approvals helps a lot.
Makes sense. Easier to do business, more attractive for investment.
Definitely helps. But the report also throws in a note of caution for 2025.
Oh, what's that? Just the global environment again, geopolitical risks, market ups and downs. I think it's slow things down next year.
Right. Always something on the horizon. So how does India plan to stay attractive if things get choppy globally?
Well, the sense is they need to keep pushing on reforms, transparency, diversified strategies, not putting all eggs in one basket, and using tools like those PLI schemes, production-linked incentives, to keep encouraging manufacturing locally.
Right, those incentives. And you mentioned spreading the growth, too, beyond the big cities.
Yeah, that seems key. Focusing on developing Tier 2 cities like Gujarat pulling in $5.6 billion, that helps avoid just concentrating everything in Mumbai or Bangalore, eases pressure, and spreads the benefits. Smart move.
So playing to its strengths.
Absolutely. India's got major advantages. That young workforce, the massive domestic market, the digital infrastructure that's growing all the time.
So the outlook for India, despite potential global headwinds. The report suggests moderate global FDI growth in 2025, and India looks pretty well placed if it keeps simplifying regulations and investing in tech. But there's still a big challenge, you know, to make sure everyone benefits. Things like rural infrastructure still need a lot of work to bridge those gaps. That SDG investment gap we talked about, it's very real on the ground.
So wrapping this up, it feels like India is really at an interesting point. A crossroads, maybe.
I think that's a good way to put it. You have this incredible opportunity with the digital economy surging ahead.
A huge potential for growth innovation.
But then you have this critical, almost urgent need to balance that with investment in the sustainable foundational stuff. Clean energy, water, basic services.
That really is the core tension, isn't it? The fast digital future versus the long-term sustainable base.
Exactly. It's the push and pull. How do you manage both?
So here's something for you, our listener, to think about. How do countries like India navigate that? This balance between chasing that rapid digital growth and ensuring the foundational sustainable development is there too. Achieving progress that's, truly balanced and includes everyone.
It's the multi-trillion-dollar question, really.
Definitely food for thought. We really recommend checking out the full UNCTAD World Investment Report 2025 if you want to dig even deeper. Lots more detail in there. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive today.